Hello everybody, and welcome back to another tutorial for Minecraft 1.19. In this tutorial we're going to be continuing our 1.19 series, and we're going to actually get started with modding. We're going to add an item this time. So this should be really easy. So let's just get started. As you can see, my IntelliJ looks a little bit different. I've just added a one dark theme and some atom icons just so everything's a little bit nicer. You can find those in the file settings, and if you go to plugins you can see your installed plugins here. Also, you've got Discord integration, so I can have Discord rich presence, and I've added also the Minecraft development plugin. I will talk about that maybe a little bit later, but now it's not too important, but you're probably going to want that as well. So let's just get started. Let's come into our dev dirty tutorial mod package, so your main package. Let's create a new package. I'm just going to call this I'll call it Init. So this is basically where we are going to register everything in our mod. Now I'm going to create a new class in here, and I'm going to call this item init. Now, by the way, init just stands for initialization. However, I just think initialization is a little bit too long, so init is just an easy way of doing that. Now, what we're going to want in here is something known as a deferred register. So what is a deferred register? Now, I don't know the ins and outs of Forge, so I'm not going to give an in-depth explanation of what a deferred register is. Essentially, it's just an object that allows you to register something of a specific registry type. So it holds something called a registry object, and these registry objects are just a supplier that also has a name. You'll understand it a little bit better when we have some examples. So all we want to do to make a deferred register is go public static final deferred register, and this is generic, so this needs to take in the type of object that you want to register. We simply just want to register items in this tutorial. I'm just going to call this items, and I'm just going to say is equal to deferred register dot create. The first parameter is the registry that we want to use, so we're just going to use forge registries dot items. And then it just needs our mod ID, which we stored as a constant in our main class. And there we go. We're just going to want to hit Alt Enter to import our thing, which it doesn't quite want to do. There we go. Make sure you import the right item. It's net.minecraft.world.item.item. And boom, then we have our item in it. Then let's create our registry object. So that is the item that we're going to register. So let's call it, let's go public static final registry object. This is once again of type item. I'm just going to call this example underscore item is equal to items.register. Then we pass in the name of our item, which is example underscore item. From there, we need to have a supplier of, and then this is our item class. So for a basic item, we're just going to do a new item. And in the constructor, we just want a new item.properties. And that is it. So let's explain what we have here. So what we're doing is we have our deferred register, which we are creating using the items registry and our tutorial mod. So this is the registry for our mod of the type item. Then we're coming down to here and we're calling that, we're saying we want to register a new item with the name of example underscore item, and we are assigning that to a supplier of a new item with these properties here. So just some blank properties. Now let's talk about this name right here. So this is simply just the name of the item that will be registered as. So for example, in the game, if you press F3 and H, you can see the sort of advanced tooltips for items, and you will see, for example, Minecraft : Apple. This is basically what we're going to have here. So we'll have our mod ID, which we're defining here. So tutorial mod : example underscore item. Now the important thing about this is that you do not have any spaces, you do not have any uppercase, and you do not have any special symbols. All that is allowed is lowercase letters, numbers, underscores, and I believe dots are also allowed. I'm not sure about dots, so don't quote me on that one, but I think they are allowed. But to be safe, just stick with the name of your item in full lowercase, replace spaces with underscores, simple stuff really. So here, as you can see, we're creating a new item. Say you wanted something a little more special, you could just say a new bucket item, for example, and that might require you have different parameters which you would check, of course, but we're just gonna, in this tutorial, stick with a new item, and we're just passing in a blank properties here. Now you can always adjust the properties. This is simply just a builder pattern, so you can just add to it by going dot, and you can choose a different property that you want to modify. For example, let's say we want to change the creative tab. We're just going to pass in this method creative mode tab dot, and then you have all of your different creative mode tabs that you could use. So I'm just going to put this in MISC. Then if you come out, you can once again press dot, and you can just chain these on and on and on with all of the different properties that you want. Now, with that item registered, we need to actually do something that's maybe a little bit confusing and might confuse you a little bit more, but we need to actually register our deferred register. So just by creating a deferred register here, nothing is actually happening with that deferred register. Like, nowhere knows that this deferred register exists outside of this class. As you can see, this class is grey, and that means this class is not going to be loaded. So what we want to do is come into our main class, so that is tutorial mod, and we just want to make a constructor, and you need to make sure this is a public constructor. And all you want to do in here is we first want a iEvent bus, and we're going to call that bus. Now that is equal to fml java mod loading context .get mod event bus, and from there all we need to do is say item init .items .register bus, and that is all you need to do to register an item in the game. Now there are some final things we need to do, and that is the sort of resource side of this. So we're done with the coding, so we can close all of our classes now. Let's come into resources, and let's create a new directory. Now this is going to be assets, and then we want a new folder. So I don't really trust how this works, so new folder, And then inside of here, this will be the name of our mod, but as our mod ID. So this needs to be, once again, just our mod ID, lowercase, no spaces, all that stuff. So mine is obviously, as you know, tutorial mod. Then we're just going to want to create another directory inside of this, and this will be called models. And let's create another directory. However, we want this other directory to actually be inside of essentially inside of our tutorial mod, not inside of models. So that makes this a little bit more confusing because IntelliJ does stuff slightly weird in the way that it doesn't like how this works. So you need to use slashes to separate these directories here. And we're just going to call this one textures. And then we're going to want to create another directory. And this will be called lang. And inside of textures, we're going to want to create another directory and call this items. And then we're going to want to create another directory and call it blocks. And we're going to want to do the same for models. So we're going to want item, so no plural here, and another directory for blocks. Block. Make sure these are not plural and these ones are plural. These need to be exactly like this. So just make sure, just double check, triple check, quadruple check, quintuple check, however many times you need to check that these are exactly as I have it here. If they're not, then you're going to have issues with them loading. And we will discuss that in a later tutorial with loading issues. But yeah. So let's first do the lang. So let's come into here, let's create a new file. And we're going to do en_us.json. And this is just a blank JSON, essentially. But we need to define our lang. Now, I'm sure if you guys have even looked at sort of the Minecraft resources before, maybe you've done a resource pack or something, then I'm sure you know exactly how this JSON works. But essentially, we just define the key. So that would actually be item dot, and then it's our mod ID, so tutorial mod dot, and then it's the name of our item. So ours is example_item. And if we come into here, we can just say example item. And that is how you define what it will actually be in the game. So this will be what it shows as when you hover over the item in the game. It'll be example space item. Fantastic. Now let's come into models, into item. Let's create another file. And we're going to call this one something along the lines. Well, I say something along the lines. It needs to be exactly the name of your item. The name of our item was example_item.json. Create a blank JSON here. Now, the first thing you need to define is going to be the parent. So the parent here is Minecraft:_item/generated. So that is just the sort of default model for an item. Then we need to define the textures. So we can go textures, and we can say layer 0, and then this will be where our texture is located. So simple stuff really, it's just our mod ID, items, / and then the name of our item. And that is your JSON. Let's just quickly go back through this and explain it. You need to make sure you get this right. So first we have the parent here, which is the parent model. That's basically what it will base the model off of, and everything else will inherit from that. So we're just using the generated model, which is for most items. Then we are defining the textures here. So we just have one layer to our texture. So we say that is called layer 0. Now layer 0 references the location of our texture. So we're saying this is located in tutorial mod because it already knows about the assets. Everything has to be in assets. So it already knows about assets. And then we say tutorial mod, and then we say items. So we are also skipping this textures folder because it knows it has to be in textures. That is, you can't change that. It has to be there. Then we're just saying it's called example_item, which is just the name of what your PNG will be called. Speaking of PNG, let's go ahead and just make a texture. Now I'm going to do something very, very simple here. I don't really want to go ahead and make a full-blown texture during this tutorial. So I'll just quickly bring over paint.net and I'll just make something very, very simple here. So I don't want to do here. I don't have to find section and I'll say, I'll just let that's very much so we don't have anything else like that. So legally can I set more will do and see that and we need to do see that in your model source, make resources, that's for more textures types, and it's just make it. The important thing to note here is obviously your textures have to be a power of 2. So for example, 16 by 16, 8 by 8, 32 by 32, 64 by 64, 128 by 128, 256 by 20, etc, etc. I advise just stick to 16 by 16. Everything else looks bad, to be honest. I'm just going to say it. Some people will hate me for that. Some people like HD textures, but in my eyes, they look awful. So just stick to the 16 by 16s, and then you won't have any problems, really. Apart from that, obviously, you just want to make sure the background is transparent for item textures. If you're using something like Paint 3D, that might be a little harder to do. Not sure. Never used it. But you can also use things like Photoshop, GIMP, Sprite, etc, etc. I personally just use paint.net. It's easy, it's quick, it has everything I need, and we're just gonna check that it's in there. So yes, it has loaded. If we open it, it shows up. Great, fantastic. Let's quickly go through creating another item just to show you how easy it is to add a second item. All you need to do, come down here, public static final registry object of type item. I'm just going to call this example 2_item is equal items.register example 2_item, then a supplier. Oh, I messed that one up. Supplier of a new item. Then that just takes in your properties, new item dot properties. Then you can just do the tab once again. So creative mode tab. Let's say it was in brewing this time. Right, so that's your example 2 item. Then you just do the stuff down here. So you come into your enus item.tutorial mod dot example 2_item example 2 item. Then you can do your model as well, so you can just copy paste that JSON, make sure it has the right name of course, and in here just change it there as well, example 2 item. Fantastic. Then you can just make another texture. Of course, I'm just going to copy the texture just for the sake of this one. I'm really quickly going to open that in paint.net as well. So let's go open recent, let's go that one. Let's go ahead quickly, just make an adjustment to show you that it's a separate item. Fantastic. Oh, I actually edited the wrong one. That's fine. So there you go, great. And if we just go ahead, we can now run the game because now we have 2 items. It's as simple as that. Obviously, I did that really quick. Obviously, if you've never done this before, it's going to take you a little bit longer than that. But don't worry about it. You'll get very fast at it the more you go. So let's just run the game. Let's test our 2 items. Let's see if they're there. So if we now go into our two tabs, so miscellaneous, for example, we have our example item. Fantastic. It's an item. What can I say? Stacks 64, all that stuff. And if we go to brewing, we have our other item. Fantastic. 2 items. That's it. Oh, what the hell am I doing? Wrong buttons. Accidentally opened the inventory and whatever. But yeah, that's it. Now you have items. You just added items to Minecraft. See how simple that was? Very, very simple. In the next tutorial, we are going to go ahead and make a block. I mean, oh god, that's kind of loud. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial and find it useful. If you did, please do be sure to smash your face into that like button and subscribe. If you really enjoyed, please do be sure to share it around. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.